Just because you get an extra job doesn't mean you get an extra day. So now you have to split time between two things. If you don't have the proper leverage in place, then you will see things begin to fall apart.
You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.
On today's Flip Empire Masterclass, I interview my friend David Adam Kurz, who is the man behind the Freedom Organization, which offers real estate training, coaching, and consulting. And guys, today's episode is one that for many of you is going to open your eyes and really force you to look inward and question how you're living your life. Question if you have the right things in place, if you were to unexpectedly pass away. David is going to get really vulnerable with you, really transparent, and share with you something very, very personal and life-threatening that happened to him just 3 short weeks ago. And as I share this, when I heard the news, the hairs on my arms started to stand up, and it really has gotten me over the course of the last several hours since recording the episode, forced me to think about my life and to think about my family and who I'm leaving behind if I were no longer here. So we used that experience to really dive into his experience as an entrepreneur, lessons learned, what he might have done different, what he is doing different, if anything. David is somebody who owns and operates 4 different businesses. So we really dive into those that subscribe to the thinking of focusing and doubling down on one thing versus those that have multiple businesses, multiple streams of income. Again, David has been in the real estate space for 2 decades and is an author. He's a speaker. He's a coach. He has proudly served our country, as you're about to hear, and father, husband, and somebody who I've known for a number of years here in the South Florida real estate industry. So with that being said, guys, I want to dive into today's podcast, and I encourage you to lean in. I encourage you to listen and hang on to every word. And I'm really excited to hopefully start a dialogue with you once you listen to this podcast. Tag me on social media. Make sure that you're subscribed to the Flip Empire Show so that you're notified on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume your podcast. So with that being said, guys, let's dive into today's episode 742 with David Adam Kurz. What's going on, everybody? I always say I'm excited to hop on here and deliver another masterclass. And I genuinely mean that because I have the opportunity to connect with entrepreneurs that inspire me and just great people that I'm fortunate to be associated with in some way, shape, or form. Today's guest is my friend David Adam Kurz, who I have known for a number of years. I remember taking a meeting with him at his brokerage many, many years ago. And I was just kind of sharing with him before we got the podcast started that, he's a man of many talents. First and foremost, husband, father. He proudly served our country, which just so much respect and appreciation for the men and women that serve our country and put their lives in the line. So I want to put that out there. And then from a business perspective, not only is he an entrepreneur, but he's an author, he's a speaker, he's a coach, he's a podcaster. I mean, there's a lot of things that he does, and there's a lot of different directions we can go in with this podcast. But not to kind of shock your system, but he just shared something with me minutes ago that shocked me, and I was sharing with him how I physically feel some type of way about what he just shared with me. But I had no idea because we hadn't spoken in a couple of months. But he suffered a heart attack just 3 weeks ago. And he openly shared with me that it was okay to have a conversation about this because if I felt some type of way about it, even though I know him and I have a relationship with him, I wanted you guys to hear his story because sometimes as entrepreneurs, we press and we just hit the gas and we go and we go and we go. And at times, it can be to the detriment of our health. Now, sometimes we may know or sometimes we might not know. And I don't know David's story as it relates to this heart attack he just suffered, but I'm just going to trust that God's going to lead and guide this conversation and that you're going to hear what you need to hear. So with that being said, David, brother, first and foremost, man, I'm grateful to have you on, but most importantly, thank God that you're even here to kind of share your story. Again, you just shared with me that you're in the process of recovering. You suffered a heart attack 3 weeks ago. So, brother, let me just kind of like open the floor to you. And again, thank you for being on, man.
Alex, thank you for having me on your show, man. It's an honor and a privilege. It's funny that you said that, because I posted on Facebook the other day, very simply, I am so grateful to be alive. Like, it's a moment where you find yourself lying in a hospital bed and you find yourself having just suffered a heart attack and looking around the room, and I see my wife, I see my daughters, I see my mother, I see very close friends of mine, all standing there in support, all laughing and having a good time, because I'm in a good place. But you take a moment and take a step out of your body and step outside the room for a second and just kind of look in and realize, I have a tremendous support system internally, right? And B, I almost left all these people behind. And that was an opportunity that was a game changer for me, if you will, because now you start to think of all the things that you do on a daily basis. And you understand at a high level that the things that you do on a daily basis are for you and your family and your loved ones. But you also realize that you can't put yourself in a position to be in a world where you begin to fall apart, where you begin to be the one that dies, right? Because then where do you leave everybody? If you put yourself in the position to do for everybody and then you disappear, what happens to everybody? Yeah. And it becomes a very eye-opening, awakening kind of situation. I don't think I've shared this with anybody. And I think it's a very unique situation. And I also remember the doctor saying, like, because I was frustrated. I take good care of myself. I do have high blood pressure, but I don't have cholesterol issues. I don't have any of that stuff. I didn't need a stent. I didn't have any blockages. There were no, artery issues. I have a small leaky valve, but the doctor's like, dude, that just happens. Like, people get old, and so, and I go to the gym minimum 4 times a week, and I take good care. I push my body to be better and greater and stronger. And then this happens. And I had a private conversation with one of the doctors and was like, listen, man, you got to give me something here, because I'm tripping out on what's going on right now, And what he said to me was, let's just put it this way. If you didn't take care of yourself in such fashion, this could have been a lot worse. Wow. And we don't know how much worse it would have been. The point is that it did happen, And so, a lot of lessons learned. First, continue to strive to take care of yourself, And I'm a coach and I coach a lot of realtors and professionals. And one of the very first things that we cover very early on is, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. That's right. And I think that's where my frustration was that I subscribe to that. Like, not only do I teach it, but I subscribe to it. I believe it, So I do my best to take care of myself. Yes, I like to have a scotch every once in a while. Yes, I smoke a cigar every once in a while. Yes, those things happen. And guess what? Like, I also believe in living life, right? Like, I'm not going to stop eating meat because some vegan tells me that meat's no good. Like, that's what I love. And I'm happy to live that life, but I don't overindulge. Yeah. Right. I'm not getting drunk every single night. I'm not smoking 2 cigars a day or 3 cigars a day and a pack of cigarettes. I'm not, eating red meat 6 times a day. I'm not everything, everything in its portion, if you will. Moderation. In moderation. And that's where I think my biggest frustration is. I went to the gym yesterday I was going to say for the first time, but I tried another time and it just didn't work out. So I left. But I went to the gym yesterday and I am lifting 1/4 of the weight that I typically lift. And I'm exhausted and dizzy and my body's like struggling. And it almost feels like I just started working out again. And so the frustration sets in more than anything else. It's the frustration of why this happened. Why did the situation of almost leaving my family stranded happen, as well as why am I feeling like this now? Like I've put so many years into taking care of myself and now I can't function. What is that? So that's, that's where I'm at right now. And obviously we could get significantly deeper with this in so many levels. Look, Alex, I was in the hospital 3 times since the heart attack. The original time I went, another time for dizziness, and then the 3rd time I really got a good workup at the VA hospital. So big shout out to the VA hospital in Miami for taking care of me. But
thank God that they poured into you so that you could be here with us. Well, man, first off, again, like I had no idea. I found out 10, 15 minutes ago about this, and just the fact that you'd be willing to honor our time by coming on here and sharing, especially when, you might be feeling low of energy. Clearly you're nowhere close to 100%. Right. I'm grateful for it. What it reminds me of, David, is that I feel like sometimes God has to put the brakes on our lives. God allows something to happen to slow us down and to get us to maybe open our eyes or to bring awareness or our attention to something that he may want us to see. I don't know if that is applicable to you right now. So I want to just kind of openly ask you, like, why do you feel this happened? You take care of yourself. I know that you subscribe to the mentality that health is wealth, as do I. Yeah. And like you, I enjoy a bourbon every now and then. And I also want to live life. And so you take care of yourself. So now that you've had a little bit of time to reflect on this, why do you think this may have happened? And then most importantly, like, what are you doing or changing as a result now that entrepreneurs listening and watching this can maybe gain or glean something from?
So let me backtrack a little bit. Okay. I am a very high energy person. If you guys are listening to me right now, I feel like I'm in slow motion, and that could be possibly the most frustrating thing for me. So when you start to think about the lessons learned, like one of those lessons could be, hey, maybe you need to slow down a little bit on the work schedule. But I hate to subscribe to that because I'm a believer that if you want to be great, you got to put in the work, And so I spend all my time telling people not to listen to the negatives in life. And yet after this happens, everybody out of love, not because they're negative, but out of love are telling me, dude, you need to slow down.
Okay.
And I don't want to. Right. And so I don't know if that's a lesson to be learned or a challenge. Right. Like, can you deal with something like this and still step up to the plate and surpass and recover and treat yourself better and do the right things to continue to be great and do everything you do, Yeah. Then there's patience, right? Because I'm not a patient man. I like to get things done and done quick and let's go. And now I'm learning some patience because the time it's going to take me to recover and the time it's going to take me to work out the way I used to, and the time it's going to take the pains to go away and the headaches and the dizziness and all that stuff. The time it takes for all of that to go away is longer than I'd like it to be.
Sure.
Right. Even if it was a day, I would want it to be gone in 6 hours. Right.
Of course.
And it's going to take months. It's going to take months of recovery and months of patience. And so maybe that's another lesson I'm learning. But when we came home the first time from the hospital, I have this digital whiteboard back here.
Yeah.
And I'm a big whiteboarder. I like to do everything on my whiteboard. And I looked at my wife. I said, let's go up to the office real quick. And I sat down in my chair and I couldn't even stand. I sat in my chair and I was like in front of the whiteboard and I put 4 boxes. And in each one of those 4 boxes, I put the 4 major pillars of the businesses that I run and operate.
Yeah.
And I looked at my wife and I said, what do we get rid of? Right. And so it became this stark reality where you might have to shut down one of your businesses, which is okay, because if you still have tremendous energy, then you just pour it into one of the other ones. Right.
Right.
But as we sat there for 30, 40 minutes having conversation, there was nothing we took off the board. And so are we not learning our lesson, or are we being challenged, or, what do we know? And you could read stories on all sides. Like, you hear people tell you horrible things that happen to them, and then they just go hard and become extra great. You hear stories about Elon Musk already being a multimillionaire or billionaire and still sleeping on a sofa in his office because he wants to be first one in and last one out in the warehouse. It's like when you hear these stories, you're like, dude, like, they're human just like me, And so why should I be afraid? What should I be scared of? I just got to go extra on also. If I'm going to go extra on that, I got to go extra on taking care of myself too, right? Because the hierarchy is me, then family, then business. And so, and people go, well, shouldn't it be family, then business, then you? No, it shouldn't, because, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody. You can't be here for anybody.
It's the analogy of you got to put the oxygen mask on first, right?
Right. Exactly. Like the captain says it, you put your mask on first, and then you reach over and help the elderly and the children, and you can't help them and then realize you can't get yours on, and then boom, you died for helping them. It doesn't work that way. If you get your mask on, then you're good. You're breathing. Get the other ones on,
Yeah.
It's also, it's God-given fact. Like, the Bible talks about head of household, head of mission, head of tribe. Like, you can't be the leader and you can't be the head of something and fall apart and not subscribe and not do the things that you are coaching at a high level or teaching or lecturing or preaching or whatever you want to say wherever you are, Right.
That's fascinating perspective, because what immediately hit me was, like your friends and family who know you best, they, out of love, to your point, said, hey, David, you gotta slow down, bro. Like you gotta, and then, but it's interesting perspective that you're viewing it as, well, does God want me to slow down, or does he want me to keep going? And this is just a challenge. It's an obstacle. And then, you refer to some of the tycoons of our era who have accomplished just so much, right? I don't pretend to know the answer, but what strikes me is if you're feeling compelled to keep going, maybe you keep pushing and going, but maybe you take a different path to doing it than you were doing it, right?
And to say that the answer or I know the answer, never going to happen. Neither one of us know the answer.
That's right.
But I do have a theory. I think whichever direction you go, you're right. Right? Because if I decide to slow down, shut down 3 out of 4 of my businesses and focus on the one and have an easier life, I'm right. And if I decide to go in on all 4 of the businesses and really push hard, but take better care of myself and, make sure I give myself breaks and vacations and massages and therapy and, physical therapy and take care of my health and everything else, then I'm also right. I think you're wrong if you're not listening to yourself. You're wrong if you go in hard on the businesses and you don't take care of yourself.
Right.
You're wrong if you get rid of 3 out of 4 businesses and then you just get lazy because you don't have much else to do.
Yeah.
Right.
I have some specific questions bouncing around in my head that I know I want to ask you at some point in this podcast, but let's take a few steps back. Prior to the heart attack, right? So when you came into 2024, if I know you the way I think I know you, you had specific goals. You're a very ambitious guy. Like you said, you're a go-getter, you're impatient. These are all attributes and characteristics of a lot of entrepreneurs I know. Now that you've gone through this experience, were there signs leading up to the heart attack that you were able to look back and said, okay, well, there was some signs there because of X or because of Y, because of Z, anything like that? Or this was just like a out of the blue, completely surprised you?
It was completely out of the blue. I knew I had high blood pressure. That was no secret, I probably knew I drank too much Red Bull. Like that was no secret, and I love coffee. So there's that.
Okay.
But, the doctors were like, we can't say that Red Bull and coffee attributed to this, but we'd suggest maybe not having any more.
Sure.
Right. Now that you know, right?
Right.
It was like, listen, that morning I woke up at 11 a.m. I started to feel pain in my chest and I ignored it because I chalked it up to like, acid reflux or indigestion or something like that. If you have bad acid reflux, you feel it in your chest. You see people rubbing their chest like, oh, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like that pressure in the chest, but it was light enough to feel like indigestion. And so I took some meetings, and at 1 o'clock, I drank a pre-workout and I went to the gym. And this is all while having a heart attack, right? Wow. But me not knowing it's a heart attack. At post pre-workout and post gym, now it hurts even more. It's a deeper, more painful situation, but not enough for me to give it attention. And so then I do a podcast. Then I go and have 2 appointments outside of my house. And then on my way home from that final appointment, the pressure is getting so strong that my head feels like it's just full of blood, you know? And I can hear my heartbeat in my head. And every time my heart beat, my eyes were dimming. And I called my daughter and I was like, hey, are you still at the house? She's like, yeah. And I go, I'm coming home. I need help. I'm not okay. Oh. You know? And so I get to the house. She helps me get upstairs to her room, and I take a blood pressure pill because I'm thinking, hey, if this is a blood pressure issue, then I'll take the pill and I'll be good in 30 minutes. 30 minutes came and went. I was no better. So mind you, imagine this. It is now 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. I'm having a heart attack since 11 a.m. And it's just progressively getting worse and worse and worse and worse. My wife walks in the door and I'm getting dressed, and she looks at me. She goes, what are you doing? And I had already told my daughter, I was like, this ain't working. I'm going to the hospital, you know? So she started helping me get clothes and stuff. And my wife walks in, she goes, what are you doing? And I said, I need to go to the hospital. And she looked at me and she goes, really? Because for me to admit,
I'm sure,
Alex, for me to admit that I need to go to the hospital, that's a big deal because I won't go otherwise.
I bet.
And she said, okay. And I remember in the car on the way to the hospital, my daughter will vouch for me. My wife is like, it's just acid reflux. That's all, baby. You got this, man. They'll give you a strong antacid and you'll be good to go. You know, hey, fingers crossed. I wish that was it, you know, and we get to the hospital. And here's the crazy part. EKG, good. You know, scans, good. You know, CT scan, good. Like no issues. Blood work, boom, it showed my troponin levels to be really high. And that meant that I was having a heart attack. Wow. And so the doc comes in and we're like, what level heart attack was this? And then we're like, well, there's low, there's medium, and there's high. You had a medium, you know?
Okay.
You know, so, and that's how it felt. And it came on so suddenly. And you really do start to question everything. Alex, like you know, like we've been talking about, you start to question everything. And that's one of the questions that you start to question. Did I ignore the signs? You know? But I don't think I had any real signs that led to this. Again, other than knowing I had high blood pressure.
Yeah.
But I've had high blood pressure for years.
Yeah.
You know, it's finally, I guess it finally caught up with me, you know? And then of course there's stress and lack of sleep and so forth and so on. And, you know, if I could say anything to the folks that tune into your podcast is, you know, make sure that you take time for you. I take time for me all the time. I'm not gonna lie. I really do. But I don't sleep very well. That's, you know, that's a given between PTSD and sleep apnea and regular joint pains and things of that nature. I just don't sleep very well. And I don't like to take things to sleep because it leaves me groggy till like 2 p.m. the next day. And I don't like to be in a fog. I like to feel like I'm at 100% all the time.
Right.
And that, you know, so, you know, lack of sleep, stress from business, stress from family, stress from life, stress from everything. It starts to mount up. And if you don't take care of yourself mentally, dude, you know, and that's a big piece. So, you know, like advice to everyone listening, like, you know, get sleep, take care of yourself, buy that massage. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you're questioning the cost of that massage, you're going to spend that $50 anywhere, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going to spend it on some bullshit later, justifying yourself out of taking care of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And so get that. See the chiropractor. Visit your doctor once a year. Like, you know,
self-care. I think to kind of wrap this part of the conversation, make sure that you're prioritizing your physical health, your mental health, emotional health, like all that. You know, there's so much valuable content and information out there about morning routines. Right over my shoulder, Hal Elrod's book, The Miracle Morning, is on there. I'm not going to tell you there's a one size fits all, but I will tell you, find what works for you. I learned transcendental meditation about 4 years ago. I've been inconsistent with it, but I really like meditating. I go to Lifetime David, which I know you're familiar with, and I love the sauna and the cold plunge. Like, do things for you, the massage, go for a long walk, get some sunlight, drink a lot of water. The things that some are somewhat common sense, but are you doing it on a consistent basis? So brother, man, I'm super grateful that you're on the road to recovery, and I will continue to pray for you. Man, the question that is just screaming at me inside of my head is, there's so many different schools of thought there's books like The One Thing, right? There's books like The Pumpkin Plan, which the premise of those books are focus on one thing, like put all your energy and focus into one thing before you start adding all these other businesses and all these other things. And right. I'm speaking to an entrepreneur. There's a bunch of entrepreneurs and ambitious real estate investors listening to this show. And let's be honest, most of us have shiny object syndrome in some way, shape, or form, some greater than others. Where do you land? You're somebody that it sounds like you run and operate 4 different businesses. Now, I'm sure you didn't start years and years ago with 4 businesses, right? I'm sure you've added along the way. What is your advice and your feedback for people listening that are actively out there doing real estate, right? There's a lot of people that are wholesaling, they're fixing and flipping, they're building a rental portfolio. I'm certain you have some realtors listening to this show. For those that have shiny object syndrome, coming from somebody who has and runs and operates 4 businesses, where do you feel is the right time for people to add another business, to get involved in something else? Like, is there a black and white answer, or just kind of where do you land on that?
I don't think there's a black and white answer, but what I can give you is some minimal things, right? Like, I do agree that you need to focus on one thing and make that one thing great before you do something else, right? Like, there was Tesla before there was SpaceX. That's right. And so, if you could make that one thing great, which, by the way, the definition of great is different than it is for me, than it is for you. Sure. So whatever you feel is great with your business, that's your answer, right? But it's not until that business has enough funds to support you and you have enough leverage in that business to not be there. Because the second that you get involved in the next shiny object, you still have the same amount of time. Like, just because you get an extra job doesn't mean you get an extra day, right? And so now you have to split time between 2 things. If you don't have the proper leverage in place, then you will see things begin to fall apart, right? And I, for one, have kind of kept my businesses in the real estate world, right? So
connected.
Right, they're connected some way, somehow. So, like, big thing, 19 years selling real estate in South Florida, right? I have a real estate team and I have an amazing team manager. And that is my biggest piece of leverage. She manages the team. She rocks and rolls. She does really well. She sells her own real estate. And so I don't have to be there for every single email, every single text, right? I'm there when I need to be there, i.e. coaching and training them, or to handle bigger issues that, the team manager doesn't feel comfortable dealing with, right? Because now it's my name on the line kind of thing, Right. And so then we transitioned from that to coaching. Why? Because over time, people said, hey, man, can you coach me on this? Or can you coach me on that? Or, can I work with you for 6 months? And then that eventually became a legitimate coaching firm. Now, coaching has only been like the last 10 years, So selling real estate for 19 years and coaching for the last 10, Yeah. And then most recently, now we're talking, where are we? April? 4 months ago, I started as a partner and president at a title company, a New World Title. And so that came later on. And that came through relationships that I was building in Texas and my speaking gigs and opportunities in Texas and my coaching opportunities in Texas. That I learned that opportunity was there. And I just introduced the opportunity to a friend who happens to be the owner of the company. He investigated the opportunity, and then he found himself in a position where he wanted to be there, but didn't have anybody to run it really. And so I kind of volunteered and invested in that. And so the 4 positions is there's my real estate team and then my recruiting thing. And even though they're together, I consider them to be two operations, right? And then there's the title company and there's my coaching company.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you look at the big scheme of things, my coaching company is my number one baby. That's my thing. That's what I'm involved in more hours of the day than anything else.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then my real estate team has tremendous leverage. My recruiting business has tremendous leverage. The title business is new, but I have good leverage in Texas. So, and good partners that we chose and good escrow officers, right? So I only need to travel there once every 3 weeks or so and spend 2 or 3, 4 days there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's not something where I'm there like every week. I got to be there.
Right. They require you 24/7.
Right.
So there's two main takeaways that I have from listening to you that I really want to highlight and underscore for those listening. The first is I love the fact that all 4 of your businesses and the operations are all centered around real estate. It's not like you're out there, doing car manufacturing and you're selling real estate and then you're coaching and then you have you're teaching swimming lessons. Like, it's not like they're all in the same ecosystem, right? Yeah. So, and it sounds like they all feed each other.
They do. They all feed each other in one way or another.
Which is great. Here's the second one. I think the operative word is you probably used the word leverage probably 4 or 5 times.
Right.
And that's the word that I want to really dive into a little bit deeper, because leverage comes in many ways, in many forms, right? You can leverage people, right? And I'm one of my favorite authors, David, is Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. They have a series of books, which I love, Who Not How being one of them, The Gap and the Gain. I mean, there's 10X is easier than 2X. There's a lot of great books those guys have. So highly recommend anybody listening who hasn't read those books to pick them up. But who, not how, right? Like, people is a form of leverage. Then you have systems, right? Technology, you have standard operating procedures. So what I really hope people get from this is that you might listen to David and be inspired by the fact that he's got 4 businesses, but A, that didn't happen overnight. B, he was very intentional and strategic about aligning all those businesses together. And then C, I hope you caught what he said. He said, make sure something is great. Make sure there's leverage in place before you go add on something else. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people are making, is they're trying to generate all these different streams of income and they're getting involved in all these things. And what I see, David, tell me if you disagree, is that people are scratching the surface on all these businesses, but they're not scratching long enough to go an inch wide and a mile deep.
You're right.
And yet they're kind of like floundering, if that's the word to use, in all these different businesses. So if that's you, I think, in my opinion, and I think David would co-sign on this, it makes sense to really buckle down, focus in on your one thing, make that great. And he brings up an awesome point based on your definition.
Based on your definition. Yeah,
that's huge. Right.
That's a huge point, because a lot of people are caught up in what the definition of success is based on what other people are posting on social media.
That's right.
And that's not necessarily true. Like, my definition of success is going to be clearly different than yours, Alex, or anyone else that we meet. Everyone has their wants, their needs, their desires, and my wants and needs and desires you might look at them and go, that's so petty, like, not me, Yeah. And that's okay, because they're mine and not yours. And I think that people need to understand that it's okay to look at yourself and go, you know what? I don't really need to make more than 100K a year. Like, what? I don't care for the Ferrari. I don't care for the huge house. I don't care for the yacht. I don't care for the private plane. Like, I'm cool flying coach. I'm cool in my paid off house. I'm cool with my family. We're living a good life. Nobody's dying here from a heart attack because we're all calm. We can afford Yankee candles and the incense is on fire, bro. You know what I mean?
That's right.
It's okay to define that as success. You know?
That's right. Yeah, no, 1,000%, man. You gotta be real. You gotta be true and authentic to what you really want. And I'm glad that you talked about social media, because, dude, I see it every day. It's people's highlight reels. Sometimes I'm conscious of what I post because I don't want somebody out there thinking I'm just out there like it's all unicorns and rainbows in my world, that I don't have setbacks and challenges and failures and lessons learned, because I do on a daily basis, right? And I don't. So again, I'm more cognizant now more than ever to just be mindful of what I put out, because I don't want it to seem like I have everything figured out, because clearly I don't, right? I don't think anybody does. And I think that's one of the benefits of a podcast like this, a podcast like David's Freedom Achievers podcast, where we're sharing real and authentic stories. I wanted to start this podcast. This wasn't planned because I just found out about David's event not too long ago. And I wanted to lead off because hopefully it's a reminder for people to like open their eyes and be aware of how fast you're running. And if you're running fast, fantastic. But are you taking care of yourself? Are you giving yourself the fuel and the energy needed so that you can run that fast or run even faster? So man, again, I'm grateful for you kind of opening up and sharing your story. As we start to kind of wind down the show here, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, as a result of what you just experienced and went through, has it forced you to look at your different operations and figure out, hey, which one of these can completely survive without me? Has it forced you to look at your personal and your family situation to say, hey, do we have certain things lined up, like life insurance, like a will, like all that type of stuff?
You start rethinking your trust and your will and, everything else. Like when you're lying in that bed, you're like, shit, is everything in order? Or did I just screw my family over? Like you really start thinking about that stuff. Like, did we pay the life insurance this month? Like, did that go through? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you start thinking about those things because God forbid something happens and the life insurance is like, no, you're 2 days late. So we're not going to give you anything, like,
yeah, man,
it really puts you in a position to think about everything, to think about your business, to think about your family, to think about what really is wealth to you.
Wow. Powerful question.
Yeah. And look, the name of my coaching company is the Freedom Achiever or the Freedom Organization. We built it that way because we believe that people are hustling and grinding. Entrepreneurs are hustling and grinding every day to find certain freedoms, whether it be financial freedom, location freedom, time freedom. Like those are amazing freedoms that we all desire at some point. Like even the person that works 9 to 5 for 30 years, they're looking forward to retirement because they want time freedom.
That's right.
And when you look at that, we're like, okay, like, did I take the right steps to do the right things? And again, like I said earlier, really just depends how you look at it. Sometimes I'll look at people and I go, you know what? This was a wake up call that I need to create more leverage, build a bigger business and do the right thing. You know why? Because it's never hurt to have more money.
Yeah.
And people look at me and go, you're insane. Like, I don't think that was the message they were sending you. And I go, that's your opinion. Like, unless you know God personally, like that's your opinion. You know what I mean? Like, unless he shot you an email that you could show me, that's your opinion. And maybe that's how you would handle it. Or maybe if you went through the same thing I did, you wouldn't handle it that way. Maybe you would say what I'm saying. Yeah. Maybe it would come abundantly clear that you need to make sure you leave you die a legend and you leave a nest egg for your spouse, for me, in my case, my wife, so big that she could live the rest of her life. And she's got good genes. So her family members live to like 105, 106. Man, we got to put a lot of money in the bank.
I think the only scenario in which I would push back on anything you just said is if it was going to be at the detriment of you taking care of yourself. And
again, that's what like we talked about earlier. Both directions are the right direction as long as you take them in the appropriate action. Exactly. If we go in super hard on our businesses moving forward, I have to learn how to create more leverage so that I have more time. Because if I have more time, I can take better care of myself. That means more time in the gym. That means more money for healthier food. That means a massage a week. I don't know what it means, right? Maybe I hire somebody to teach me how to meditate. I don't know how to meditate. I don't like meditating. I've tried it. My brain is always at 100 miles an hour and I can't get it to slow down, And
that's exactly what meditation will help you, by the way.
Yeah. So, I need somebody to teach me that, and make more associations with the right people to build great business and great community. And I think that would warm my heart more than hurt it, because it's not only about the money, right? Yeah. We know that. Like, yes,
money's a tool. It's important.
Yeah, that's the beautiful consequence of the things that you do.
Yeah.
right?
That's a good way to put it.
But it's not about it. It's about the community. It's about the believers. It's about the people. It's about what you build that people can fall in line with and believe, and you change their lives and put money in their bank accounts and help them make big moves and buy big houses and live out their dreams and, do what they can do because you've set the tone and the foundation for them to do so. That's game changer shit right there.
Yeah.
And that's what I desire to do. I mean, our company mission statement is to change the lives of businesses of over 1 million people in a positive way. Like that's our mission statement, dude. Like that's what we intend to do. And that's what I continue to intend to do. And I know some people listening might be like, dude, you're insane. Like, dude, you just had a heart attack. Yes. And if I wasn't in the shape that I'm in, it would have been a lot worse. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to continue to work on my personal physique. And I'm going to continue to, what it also showed me was that I need to continue to work on my mental physique, and be able to absorb stress even better. Donald Trump said many, many years ago, he was interviewed and he was asked, what advice would you give to an entrepreneur? And Donald Trump said, you need to be able to handle stress at a very high level. If you can't handle stress, you'll never be able to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So train your mind to handle that. You said something earlier too. You were mentioning how people are the ultimate leverage, right? Mm-hmm. And I quickly looked up this email I got from Brad Lee. And he wrote, don't forget your most valuable asset, because people are assets. It's an idea completely lost on most folks. He said, people are focused on saving money because they see that as their only form of wealth. But the reality is, saving every penny is the reason people never become wealthy, because real wealth isn't just about what is in your bank account. It's who you know.
I couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more. For people that have been subscribed or have been listening to this show for a while, they know that I am relationally based. I'm not transactionally based. And I truly believe that if people prioritized relationships over transactions, they'd be happier, healthier. They'd be more fulfilled. They'd have more opportunities. They'd have a greater sense of purpose and contribution, and ultimately freedom.
Yeah.
And so, brother, man, I appreciate, again, you taking the time, especially what you experience. I know you're not at 100%, but I want to give people an opportunity to learn more about everything you have going on, your different businesses. So if you can let us know, like, where people can reach out to you, if they want to start building a relationship with you, if they want to get involved with anything you have going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So website is everythingdavidkurz.com. And when you go to everythingdavidkurz.com, it basically links you to everything that I do. First thing you're going to see on there is a conference that we have in Miami, May 9th, real estate related. We've got some I haven't even posted them on there. We'll announce them soon, but there's some really high level people coming into the stage, but it's telling you all the great people that are going to be speaking. I have my Real Estate Freedom Academy in there. It's a free academy for anybody who wants to join. Beautiful community of real estate professionals. And also like over 300 coaching and training videos that you just use and listen to for free. And then it gives you a bunch of other stuff. My Instagram is my #1 social media platform. Okay. So you'll be able to connect with me on there. But every link you would want is at everythingdavidkurz.com.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Guys, thank you for tuning in and for supporting the show and for giving us your most valuable resource, which is time. Hopefully this episode has impacted you the way that it's impacted me. Again, I mentioned that I physically felt something when David kind of shared the news with me. And as a result of listening to his story, it really has caused me over the course of the course of this conversation to really stop and slow down and look at what I have going on, life insurances and wills and trust and all that type of stuff. Having conversations with people. It reminds me of an episode, David, that I did at some point last year, and I'll ask my team to link it up in the show notes. But last year, and we're going to wrap up the show on this last thought, right before I left on a trip to Europe, I spent about a good month and a half, 2 months working on something I call the Pardo legacy file, which is a Dropbox of all the important documents, I'm talking spreadsheets with usernames, passwords, like all the important people. And I shared it with my wife and I said, if something were to happen to me unexpectedly, here's the password to access this Dropbox that has all of the information from our house to insurances to subscriptions to business to bank accounts. Like literally everything is here. Awesome. And what it has reminded me to do is to go back and update that. Because that's something that probably should be done probably quarterly, if not twice a year. So I encourage you guys out. We'll try to find that episode. It's called the Pardo Legacy File. We'll link it up because I did an episode kind of breaking down exactly the process I went through. And with that being said, again, David, man, I wish you nothing but health and wealth and success and all that. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that.
And thank you,
of course.
Yeah, man. So guys, reach out to David, everythingdavidkurz.com. Send him love and prayers so that he's on his road to 100% speedy recovery. And with that said, I really look forward to connecting with you on the next show. Take care, everybody.
Hope you enjoyed that episode. But before you go, I've had a lot of people recently reach out to me wanting to learn more about Ascend, wanting to understand how the mastermind component works, how the coaching relationship works. And so right now we're actually on a waiting list. But what I would encourage you to do is if you think you're the right fit and you think you could benefit from being a part of our community, head over to ascendyoursuccess.com, watch the short video, and then just click the apply to join button below. And then we'll be in contact with you if and when a spot opens up. So really appreciate you listening to Flip Empire here. And I look forward to connecting with you on the next show. Take care.